All right, welcome everybody. Good to have staff. Always good to have staff. Commissioner, thank you for joining us today. I know how busy you are, Jessup. I know you're running around like crazy. I know that. Albert, thank you very much for agreeing to be the secretary for the meeting. And Omar, always, it's good to have the board's treasurer with us. I'm sorry, and the executive director all at the same time. Before we do anything, we need to have the secretary call the roll to determine whether we have a quorum.
Calling the roll. Chairman Carney,
He's present.
Member Fernandez Ketchum, Member Freed,
Present.
Member Colden,
Present.
Member Sue, Member Shaw,
Here.
Member Zerilli.
Present.
We have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. We'll get right into the agenda. We have to take a look at and vote on a resolution to approve the minutes of the October 11th meeting. Are there any questions about those minutes? Anybody got any changes to propose? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Thank you, Arlene. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Adam. All in favor, please indicate. I'm sorry. Mr. Secretary, would you call the roll?
Sure. Mr. Freed, how do you vote?
Approved.
Mr. Colden,
Approved.
Ms. Shaw,
Approved.
Mr. Zerilli,
Approved.
Mr. Carney.
Approved.
It's approved.
So the minutes are approved. Thank
Yes,
you
sir.
very much. We have the third agenda item is a presentation. It is a proposed partnership with the Fuse Corporation. What do they say if you say?
I don't know how French it is.
Yeah. Neither do I. That's why I asked.
And hopefully it's in the present future tense, not the past.
Not, yeah.
I'll start off, if you don't mind, Mr. Chair, and then I'm actually going to ask the agency's chief of staff, Anna Ponting, to deliver the presentation since she's been actually managing the potential partnership with Fuse. But just by way of context for members of the board, as you will all recall, at the end of last year, you approved the hiring of a strategic advisor to do a strategic plan for the agency. We've done some informal updates midway through that process. We are working to complete the agency's strategic plan. I was hoping next month. It might go into January, but we are in the home stretch, I believe. And we've now turned our attention to the challenge of how do we actually implement. And in addition to core opportunities around water infrastructure and some of the topics that you were, that we identified to you during some conversations over the summer, another significant need and opportunity is really around the agency's business processes, ranging from customer service to internal procurement management. As you know, that's been a major focus of mine. A number of other areas where, frankly, private sector expertise would be very helpful to us. And through actually an introduction that I received several months ago, we came to appreciate the Fuse Fellowship, which I believe, Dan, you are aware of.
Yes, that's right.
Which is a national organization that brings people from the private sector to do short-term stints in the public sector. This seems like a real opportunity for us for some of the things that are emerging as real opportunities. And that's why we are bringing it to you today. I think it is directly connected to the implementation of the strategic plan, which I think makes this not just a normal hiring opportunity, but something that is worthy of the water board's direct attention.
It's proposed a 3-year term.
I'm sorry?
The term is proposed for 3 years still.
It's a 2-year.
It's a 1-year term
Yes.
with 3 different fellows. So we're proposing 3 different projects. There is the ability, and we can discuss the timeline. Often they do extend into a 2nd year if it is mutually agreed upon by the agency and the fellow.
Okay, all right.
So let me ask Anna then to go through, there's a document here, she's going to go through it quickly and then certainly answer any questions.
And Anna, thank you for coming. Thank you
Of
for being
course,
here.
thank you. So I'll be relatively streamlined in going through this. The commissioner discussed the context here. We'll go into some of the trends that have been identified through the kind of first half of the strategic planning exercise that we've done so far. Focusing on the bottom half of this page, just noting that we are really excited about being well-positioned to really start on this work at the same time as we are publishing the strategic plan, rather than looking to wait and engage people further on, right? So it's looking to be well-sequenced here. To give a bit of context on the strategic plan, many of you have been, brought up to speed over the course of the summer. I'm not going to dive into all of these, but we'll focus on the second, third, and fourth, which are most tied to our proposal here with Fuse. So the second on customer service, looking to really enhance the way that we engage customers, use more digital tools, build on the fact that we now have this much improved billing system, and then now be able to target customers more specifically, use modern methods. Third goal here around decarbonization, we are on track to get to carbon neutrality, right? There's a lot of work that will happen there. It's also a big opportunity on the resource recovery side. Are there ways to monetize those resources that we have to help the agency kind of recoup some of those costs? And then fourth, on efficient use of resources and affordability, this is kind of a broad category. There are many, many things that we can do a little bit better internally, and looking to develop a project management office, both for the large things, which you all have seen some of the massive improvements in procurement, capital delivery. There are, a half dozen or more other big opportunities in the agency that we'd like to pursue with the Fuse Fellowship here. The proposal
Can we
here.
go back just
Yes,
a second?
certainly.
I understand how you apply various metrics for numbers 2, 3, and 4. But when you get to flooding, how do we, and I'm sure there's a way to do it, I'm sure there's a technical way to get it done, but do we have the metrics now to be able to say that we've successfully implemented that strategic goal?
Not really, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
That is something that I think lots of people around the world are struggling with how to quantify that. It is, of course, a multivariate kind of thing, because there's frequency of flooding, there's extent of flooding, as well as it's not a binary, are you safe from flooding or not? There's also, of course, as we know, multiple kinds of flooding: rainwater, coastal, sunny day, tidal. So this is one that I'm not sure in the strategic plan we are going to really attempt to have a fully quantifiable metric. I think that might be too much. But it is something that I think, in concert with, say, the C40 cities and a number of other efforts we're going to work towards. Further, this is also, as I think I've described to you on the board, the Office of Management and Budget is actually moving to implement climate budgeting across the city. So that is integrating the city's climate plans into the city's budgeting processes. Kind of as you just suggested, when it comes to carbon emissions, that's pretty straightforward. When it comes to resilience, that is far more difficult to quantify. And that is therefore something that both the Mayor's Office of Climate and Environmental Justice, particularly our new Bureau of Climate Resilience, Coastal Resilience, and OMB are going to be working very closely together.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. Anna, I'm sorry.
Okay, so the formal proposal is to authorize the use of funds and contracting authority to partner with Fuse Corps to participate in their executive fellowship program. As I noted, there would be 3 of these. Each one of them is a $180,000 program fee. That includes the, very significantly for us, the executive search process, which is something that is, for us, would be very, very manual to do, and they have a lot of relationships that can help link that up. They will come to us with kind of a handful of potential candidates, and then we will do the interviewing internally. This also includes a decent amount of, or a programmatic kind of fellow supervisor coaching experience that they do externally, so they help kind of get some of the external, not public sector folks used to working in, the type of environment that we'll be working on. And then also, of course, their actual salary, which will go to the year-long program. And then, as I mentioned, there is the potential to extend, should that be of interest. The three programs, or the three projects that I'll be describing on the subsequent pages are again related to energy, customer relationship management, and then business process, PMO.
How much of the project fee goes to paying the fellows?
I'll need to get back to them, I think it's around 100,000.
Thank you.
And this is full-time fellows?
It's full-time, right. Full-time, sitting with us, kind of fully integrated.
They're a benefit employee.
DP email address, exactly. So for a bit more context on Fuse, they have been around since 2011. They have done hundreds of projects at this point. They often do multiple projects with the same city at the same time. So I think actually for the County of LA, which is one of their larger clients, they have 30 plus fellows at a given point, right? It's a pretty well organized machine at this point. They focus on 6 major areas: health, justice, education, climate, housing, and workforce. Many of ours will be climate adjacent, but also touch other categories. I won't spend too much time here, but it goes to say they have a strong set of precedent projects. They are nationwide. One of the benefits of this network is being able to pull on best practices, other places they've seen. So even in the conversations we've had with their team so far, it's been pretty evident how, they can point to, oh, actually what you're describing is something that Louisville did at some other, recent point. Let's learn about how the project scope could fit or how it might need to be tweaked in New York. So very helpful kind of ground truthing as well. And then we'll spend a bit more time here on the actual projects themselves. As we noted, we're aligning this with our strategic planning efforts. There are a handful of external pressures that are leading us to make internal statements about what we need to do to better serve customers and to better position the agency going forward. As a result, we have these 3 projects again. Again, in the interest of time, spend too much time here. But as far as the actual skill sets, to speak a bit more on the monetizing renewable energy investments, this is an area where we have an extreme amount of internal kind of scientific engineering expertise, but as far as structuring the agreements with a private sector partner, we would really benefit from somebody who has experience in the investing space, who has done these types of negotiations, and really help us think creatively about what's the right business model to be imposing here, right? These are huge opportunities. You all know, as of last summer, we had launched the first renewable gas to grid project at Newtown Creek. We are now doing really extensive internal work to see where else we can do that type of a project citywide so that we can reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, but also it is a revenue opportunity. So how do we structure those types of agreements so that it's beneficial to the city? And then second, an area that we just internally don't have the bandwidth to spend all that much time on is thermal energy, sewer heat exchangers, and other technologies that can take the energy that's sort of captive within our system and get it to power buildings and really just help use a resource that at this point is woefully underused. So this is one where we're really excited to pair kind of the internal scientific engineering side with somebody who can come in and do the more business focused angle. For the next one, Project Management Office, as I mentioned, this is building on some of the internal work that we're lucky to have our Senior Advisor, Marissa Moray, here, who she's been leading a lot of the internal business process improvement work. There is more than can be done by one person, right? And we think it's a really big opportunity to figure out how we scale that work and how we institutionalize it. I think what the right organizational structure is to work both with the CFO side of the organization and the COO side of the organization to make sure that we're meeting the demands of the system. So this is one where we would ask the fellow to come in, do kind of a horizon scan of the opportunity set within DEP, and then figure out what's the right type of structure here, what's the right type of expertise that we can then hire up and have a small but powerful project management office to accelerate a lot of the cross-agency, cross-bureau work that we do. Finally, the customer relationship management tool, again, building on the much more sophisticated billing system we now have, there is an opportunity to deepen the customer relationship side as well. We have a strong degree of being able to reach out to our customers now, but it is nowhere near what other kind of leading utilities would be doing. And one of the findings from our strategic plan analysis has been that we, on a relative basis, kind of underinvest in our customer relationships. We spend actually quite little. It's good in terms of efficiency, but we think there's additional opportunities for better customer engagement. And this is something that will be deeply embedded in our Bureau of Customer Service, working with the team that does manage the billing system, works with a lot of external consultants as it is, and so this would be kind of a project-based launch that CRM tool, train up the organization to use it properly, and enable a lot of the both revenue side but also general marketing and awareness efforts that we're looking to do internally. So, last page here quickly, just on timeline. We've spent the past several months doing the scoping with the teams that would be absorbing these fellows internally. They would be working with kind of senior leadership within the relevant bureau. The executive search process, assuming this moves forward, would start in December. There would be a several-month search and interview process with the fellows kicking off in April or May. They would stay for that year, and then we'd evaluate over the course of the subsequent months if it was worth extending further, in which case, of course, we would be coming back. So, any questions on the program or any of the underlying projects?
Well, one question on I guess maybe the PMO function, looking at efficiencies. In the past, we were authorized New York Work Labs as a consultant that was looking at organizational structure within DEP. Just wondering how that may relate to this, or if that contract is currently still active. I think it's been around for a couple of years now.
And that is still active, but we've been using it much less. Work Labs, which particularly is one particular individual, Jim Krantz, he still does, provide some sort of guidance to some of the operating bureaus. He's done a lot of work up in BWS in terms of, doing some of their restructuring. He's probably going to start maybe engaging somewhat, which might, segue in with this for BCS as well. But he's focused much more on like how looking at each of the bureaus, looking at the staff that's there, especially the senior level management, and where are there sometimes, issues, and how do you, work towards those as well? Because that's sort of where Jim's background is. He's, industrial, what's the psychologist, I believe, is, so he's.
So complementary.
Yes,
but-
exactly.
But
So,
not.
yeah, we've definitely gone down in terms of how much we've used him, in these past few years with our projects. So,
Thank you, Joseph.
you're welcome.
Are there other questions?
Yes, also go for it. So the only question I want to know is just, I'll ask some questions after because I know people have to leave, so I just want to, but for the record, are we allowed to hire the fellows at the end? Sort of what is the limitations with fees with respect to that?
We certainly are. It really depends on the city and their own hiring process, but if there were an opening that they were the right fit for and went through the normal competitive process, they would be able to stay.
Okay, I just want to ask questions when we're done with these. I know
Great. And presumably, this is a contract, so it doesn't implicate any of the sort of ongoing sort of hiring freezes that come and go. So this is outside of that. My real question, I think, is related to that. At the end of the fellowship, whether it's 1 or 2 years, is there a structured way in which the knowledge that's gained, is captured by the agency? If the fellow doesn't decide to get hired by DEP, they've done all this great work, but they may be walking out the door with a lot of really great knowledge for the agency. Is there a structured way to capture that to make sure that the agency gets the full value of that in the long term?
Yeah, it's a good point. I think there's kind of two components to it. One is the project-oriented nature of the assignment to begin with. We can certainly structure, and we will structure to have that type of handoff period, right? And making sure that the knowledge is transferred and that we have the right succession plan for who's going to be taking on leadership once they're gone. I do think there's also programmatic pieces built into the relationship with Fuse where, as a part of the structure, right, they are highly attuned to the fact that, as they've done, hundreds of these projects, they do need to make sure that value stays. And so I'd be happy to confirm with them, but I am fairly certain that part of their process includes that kind of offboarding process, which is just as important as the onboarding process.
Yeah, that's right.
Also, though, if I could add to that, I think biggest issue with losing expertise is when somebody has an ongoing job and then you have a vacancy and then successor has to relearn everything. I think part of what's attractive in the way we're thinking about using these people, these are projects, right? Where success is this person comes in, creates a new system of doing things, whether it's at customer service or it's about negotiating a new framework and issuing an RFP around biogas, for example, right? Yes, obviously there's some knowledge there, but what they really are leaving behind is a new way of doing things. Presumably, if we are managing them well,
Yeah.
they're also leaving behind the operating manual to make sure that that process can be maintained. So to a certain extent, it is on us.
Yeah, okay. Great.
Are there other questions now? Hearing none, we have a resolution. It's fairly simple. I guess I was confused when I mentioned the term of 3 years, it's 3 projects. I don't want anybody else to suffer the same confusion I suffered. Thank you all for correcting me. You've had a chance to take a look at it. Are there any questions about the resolution itself? Hearing,
Maybe
yes.
one quick one. This maybe actually is a slightly broader question. What makes this a water board contract versus a DEP contract?
So at least my argument is that because this is about directly implementing the strategic plan that was a water board investment, that I think this qualifies. I think we are trying to be cognizant of the fact that we're not going to be using the water board for normal things, but I think this is about a strategic shift in the agency.
Okay.
So just to, and I don't know if this is right or wrong, but I don't think Al, you're very sharp. So I actually think the last 2 paragraphs, are they actually correct? Because this seems to say that it's 580,000 for year 1, but the way this reads, to his point, is that it says a 3-year term, not to exceed 600,000. I would assume that number should be triple that if you're talking about a 3-year term, or is that 600 per term year, right?
So the resolution's written to give staff negotiating flexibility, so the term is up to 3 years.
Yeah, correct,
So it can
correct.
be shorter.
I don't
the
think
amount
anybody's
is that.
objecting.
The aggregate compensation total
Is
over the
600.
number of terms, whether it's 1, 2, or 3 years, is a 600 aggregate.
Right, so I mean, just, I want to give you the leverage to negotiate what you see fit. I think that I agree with you, it is reading a little confusing, so we should just make it clear that we give consent for 600 for each of the 1-year terms that make up the 3-year term. I think that's the confusion, right?
I mean, if you
Well,
would
is
like
that-
to do
wait,
that.
is that the
Yeah,
intent?
that's-
That's what I'm asking,
So the-
because
Because that was my confusion.
yeah, it's not written clearly here, so that's the question.
So it's not 600, the aggregate, the total authorized expenditures over the number of terms, whether it's 1, 2, or 3 years, would not exceed 600,000.
Right, we're not authorizing 1.8.
Got it, 'cause
Right.
but that seems to say that 580 is the cost of 1 year.
So
Five.
what it does kind of contemplate to what Anna suggested is basically it sets us up to do the 1-year program. And if we want to extend them on your dime, we'd have to come back
Okay.
to change the number.
Just wanna make sure.
But at least then the
but
legal
language
agreement
needs to be
could
clear.
encompass the extension.
Got it.
Right.
Thank you for helping me to know that I'm not.
No, you're not nuts. You're not nuts, I mean, no pride of, don't wanna attack the driver.
And just, by the
Lawyers are
way,
very sensitive about what they
we use the
draft.
same construct with the strategic consultant.
No, understood,
Because
I'm
we
not
have the funding
objecting.
for the first phase, the agreement actually includes a second phase. We haven't decided whether we want to seek use of that. If so, we would have to come back to you.
Yeah, not objecting to how you're structuring it, I just think that the way the language is written, it could read different ways, right? So I just wanted to be clear, because I don't think Al is off as to whether or not you guys are asking for 1.8 versus 600, right? So it seems like, I don't know if we want to tinker with the language, or if the clarification in the record is sufficient. I'm fine either way, I think.
Well, I mean, the resolution should stand alone in terms of what's authorized, independent of the record. So the phrasing is, the aggregate compensation authorized and payable to Fuse Corp pursuant to this agreement shall not exceed 600,000 during the term of the agreement. We could add shall not exceed 600,000 during the term of the agreement for all consultants or all advisors authorized under the agreement.
Yeah,
Well,
just
just
so
wanted
it's
to- just to
clear.
make it utterly clear.
Yeah, just so it's clear that we're not rolling that 600 for that 3-year term, right? Because logically, if I'm letting you negotiate for 3-year term, the cap should be associated with the idea that I'm doing a 3-year term, so that disconnect makes it a little unclear.
Thank you, Arlene.
You're welcome.
Thank you
You're
very
welcome,
much.
fine, sir.
Um,
See what happens when you let me sit to the left, and one is done right. Make sure you have a woman sitting next to
I'm
you.
glad you're here.
All
right.
That's right, you need a left-hand woman, everybody knows that.
So a minor revision has, but a clarifying revision has been proposed. Let me ask whether or not you're ready to vote on this resolution with that revision.
Yes.
Okay. That being the case, Mr. Secretary, would you take a roll call?
Yes, I will. Calling the roll. Member Freed, how do you vote? Member Golden?
Approved.
Member Shaw?
Approved.
Member Zarilla?
Approved.
Chairman Carney, how do you vote?
To approve.
It's been approved, resolution.
All right.
So then can I ask 2 questions? I know there's nothing else to vote on, right? So I don't want to take away the quorum. What are we internally at DP doing to be able to bring this talent in-house, right? Like, consultants are great. I work at a small company, we get it, right? We use external consultants. The problem is no one owns it the way you do when it belongs to you. So I get, I have this conversation often and I have it a lot with young people. I think that it's lost on young people the benefit of working for the city, right? I think people don't understand pension benefits, healthcare benefits, and these are things that are not going away, right? Like the need to have people who understand strategic planning, who can negotiate like, I'm an investment professional. Nobody I know applies for city jobs despite whatever the ultimate benefits are. And that's not even uneducated people, right? Like, I had a conversation with a police officer the other day who didn't realize that when he takes his pension, he takes that tax-free, right? And that's like a huge benefit when you think about where we're going just economically and what taxes will look like in 20 years when he and I retire. So what are we doing internally to make sure that we're hiring these kind of sophisticated individuals to sit within the agencies? And you may not have an answer for that.
Well, look, I mean, it's a good question and a real challenge. I mean, the reality is, as you point out, first of all, the traditional value proposition of working for the city is you're gonna be here for a long time. And if you stay for your 10 or 20 years, then the pension becomes very attractive. And a dwindling percentage of early career people are thinking in those terms.
But it's because I argue that we don't present
We give them a lousy building to work in,
right.
right? We had a flood over the weekend. 4 of our floors today are having to work remotely because of the asbestos remediation that our awful landlord has been botching for months, if not years. And we do not pay competitively. So we have struggled, with one exception, and I'm pleased about that, but generally speaking, we have struggled to attract the kind of national talent or talent outside the agency for many of our jobs, right?
But it's
When we
interesting
post a
because when
senior
you look
role-
at this fuse, right, you're only making $100,000 with absolutely no benefit. So there is a pool of potential population of people who are willing to do
I
that
believe
work.
they actually just, what's the total income of a Fuse fellow? It's more than 100, right?
I think it's around
It's like-
100, I think.
Okay.
But it is meant to, I mean, the value proposition for those folks is.
I know.
I'm 15 years into my private sector career, I'm
Right, and I
comfortable
get
enough
the
that I can do
experience
this.
and I can and I use it as like a life transition. It's not lost on me why someone takes a pay cut to do that job.
Right.
But I do think that as these things become more technical, more complicated, right? Because like for someone who's in the environmental sector, you set up the RFP for the biogas sale, but then you don't have someone with the level of expertise to continue to manage it. So the question is, how is we as a board can help support UEP as part of the strategic plan to be able to attract talent?
It's fundamentally, so in terms of hiring, DEP operates as a city agency.
Mhm.
And it is fundamentally a challenge facing city government. You look at our vacancy rates,
Mhm.
you look at our problems getting anything done,
Mhm.
you look at the terrible working conditions we give people. And then you wonder why we struggle to recruit. And we do, and now sometimes we do great, and, you know, we should have had in fact, maybe next time I'll ask her to come, but I could not be more excited about our new deputy commissioner for the Bureau of Coastal Resilience, Lorian Farrell, who's a person of national profile. And that was a search where we had candidates from all over the United States and several international candidates. Like, really exciting to have that kind of pool of candidates applying for a job in DEP. But it is challenging. I mean, but it is systematic, and it's about city government. It's not, unfortunately, something that I think the water board can really address. Now, hopefully next month, something that was requested earlier this year was a presentation on the powers of the water board. And we've been doing work on that. And we will hopefully, I think, next meeting, be able to give you a presentation on that.
But even if it's us authorizing like the work with the strategic planning, right? Because as I think about the agency's sustainability of talent, like, you know, internal knowledge build in the sort of very strategic, like very specialized way that we need it, right? If it's about us thinking about including it as one of the strategic planning items that we can like approve in like what we're doing, right? Because that all speaks to sustainability of the agency. I get it. Like, I get that it's a citywide problem. I talk to young people all the time about applying for city jobs. I actually have 3 who I've convinced to do it, right? And I get the uphill battle. So it's not lost on me. I guess all I'm saying is if we can be supportive in doing this as part of maybe one of the McKinsey studies or one of the other studies, to really just take a deep dive into like how we can help the agency sustain, right? These wonderful young gentlemen in front of me, right? At some point they're gonna wanna go home. Right? And like and that's real, right? And these wonderful young gentlemen have been here for as long as I've been here, right? And I'm going on 15 years. So it's one of those things where, you know, when that knowledge is lost, if we don't have transition, it's a blow to the agency. So I just want to put on the record that, you know, I would love for us at some point to think about how we can be supportive, whether that's through approving a study or hiring a consultant or being supportive in some way around sustainability of the agency itself.
Understood, and I will say, while I don't know that it gets quite to the recruitment and retention of the profile of people we're thinking about with the Fuse Fellowship, we are very much thinking about workforce as part of the strategic
Oh, I know
plan.
you are.
So
I
there will be a
just
number of
wanted to be
things
on the
there.
record that, and so we're clear, what I want to put on the record is not that I don't think that this agency is thinking about it. What I want to put on the record is, as a board member and someone who has been here for a while, I am in support of us finding ways to partner with the agency on finding ways to think about workforce development, because I do think that that is a huge portion of strategic planning for the agency and sustainability of talent and expertise on a system this large with the sophistication of New York City. I am behind, and I'm sure my fellow board members are behind, helping to think about how we create a better pipeline of talent to make sure that the agency and its level of sophistication and its needs are met. So
I welcome your comments, thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you very much.
We're gonna move the agenda.
Yeah,
But
let's
before we do that, I wanna welcome the Executive Director of the Water Finance Authority to the meeting, David Womack. Thank you for coming in. All right, the next agenda item is a presentation. It is being proposed that the American Water Resources / on-course contract that currently is in effect be extended and revised, both as to pricing and coverage terms.
Should we do the roll call of the Fuse resolution?
I'm sorry, did you?
we did,
You did do it? Okay.
yeah, because Adam left.
Is that right? You didn't want to go before we go. We've got a number of people with us today. I don't know names. I'm not good at it. Omar will know the names. Are you all going to come to the table to present? Please do.
happy to have you all start whenever you choose. Who's gonna kick this off?
Mr. Chairman, before the folks from AWR speak, I do want to just put some of this into context.
Of course.
As you know, we've had this relationship for several years now. Among the things that we look at, that I personally very much look at in terms of the agency's functioning and frankly as part of several of our strategic initiatives, is ensuring that we eliminate as many as possible of those moments when New Yorkers call on us for things that really DEP should not be involved in. And as you know, when something goes wrong with somebody's plumbing, the first thing they would like to do is assume that it's a DEP problem.
And they want to
because
talk to you specifically.
Many of them do, a surprising number. And so it was clear to me early on that actually having a successful program like the one we have had over the last several years, it has had some issues that I know the Water Board is aware of and that predate my time, but thinking about this going forward is actually of strategic value to the agency because it eliminates a series of potential frictions that could cost the agency, both in terms of time and money and in terms of reputation. At the same time, of course, our partners have to be equal to DEP's reputation, and I know that's something of concern to all of you. And we have to learn from the past, and I think, and I give a ton of credit, so thanks to Omar, who's led our negotiations on our side, but a lot of support from Joe, Anna, and others in identifying, working with AWR on some of the lessons learned from the last several years, areas that needed to be improved, and ensuring that we come up with a concept that really serves the agency and our water customers. And I believe that's where we are.
Okay.
But with that, I do want to turn it over to the team from OnCourse to give this presentation.
So you're on course, but you're still doing business as AWR, is that?
Yes, I will get that.
I'm
very
sorry, I
quickly.
preempted a portion of your presentation.
Thank you for welcoming us, and thank you, Commissioner, for that introduction. You'll hear key elements of what the Commissioner just brought up in our presentation. My name is Aaron Cooper. I am the CEO of OnCourse Home Solutions. OnCourse Home Solutions does business as American Water Resources, specifically in New York. I'm joined by Josh Cohn. Josh is our CFO, Eric Palm, who's our COO, and Colin Garrity, who's our General Counsel. Today, what I was going to do is we're going to provide some overall information on the program, and then we're going to go into details about the improvements in coverage that we want to take forward into the next 5 years of this relationship. I want to pause for a second, though, and just underscore some of the things the Commissioner just said. The spirit behind these changes that we're making is about keeping affordability top of mind and improved coverage. Now, those two things can sometimes be at odds, which is why you have to really roll up your sleeves and get into the details to make sure that you can make tweaks to a program that has already been optimized for those elements. And that is a lot of hard work that Omar and Joe have worked with our team on. So I extend my thanks as well. A little bit about your question on OnCourse Home Solutions. So when we were last in front of you, American Water Resources was a small part of a $20 billion public utility. We are now an independent company. As that independent company, we're moving forward with the name OnCourse Home Solutions, and we still have a partnership with American Water, and so we do business as American Water Resources as well.
But you're also owned by a private equity company, is that not correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
So as a result of that ownership, and I was interested to hear some of the things discussed earlier, we are investing heavily in our business behind customer experience, in our data systems, in our CRM systems. We're now using AI Assist with our call center to support our New York partnership as well as our other partnerships, as well as our claim systems, other systems. So it's been great for this company that hasn't, you're a small part of a big public company, you're not going to get that level of investment. But when it is your mission from your board top down to serve your partners and to serve your customers and to have the goodwill reflected back, which is what this business is meant to do, that's exactly where all these investments are now being made. So our board includes expertise from the home warranty space, expertise from the customer service space, and our key investors have decades of expertise in the home services space. And again, they're most interested in us having healthy, growing partnerships, which is my accountability. But just for everybody, my first month on the job, I've been in the job about 18 months. In my first month on the job, I came to visit Omar and Joe. I went to go visit one of the jobs in New York, and it's something I like to do with all of our partners. And I don't know if anyone's been to a job recently, but when you're there and you're talking to a customer who has just been paying less than $20 a month and got a $10,000 to $15,000 claim covered with no deductible, where the service was done the same day,
That's phenomenal.
you feel it. It is phenomenal. It is emotional. Because you're like, what was the alternative? So on the one hand, you're like, we don't want calls going into the DEP. On the other side, it is actually an incredible mission-oriented component of our business. And it is something that, for me, personally, was great to see in the first month, and a standard by which we're making sure that we run the whole company by. So we view our partnership with New York and with the DEP as very much bleeding edge and something that we seek to replicate that standard across everything that we do.
This will probably get your presentation out of order, but since you raised a great claims experience, is that going to be a part of your presentation, claims? That is, what percentage of the 260,000 New York City customers file claims? Of that number, how many of those claims are settled amicably? Do you have outstanding issues? Those kinds of questions. It's maybe inappropriate now because you're going to get to that, but I'd like to hear some of that when you get to it.
So we will make sure to hit all those points.
Okay.
And not one thing that you said to me is a surprise that it was on your mind. So
Okay.
we may not have every number in here, but we definitely are aware of the numbers.
Okay. All right.
And this is the executive team of the company, and this is also the people that are in the details as relates to New York City. The experience that I just talked about, tying to your question though, there's that amazing experience it's happened about 1,000 times a month, where customers are coming away with that type of experience. Now, not all of those may be as extreme as a $10,000 to $12,000 claim, but a lot of them are, and that's where you really get that reaction. What you're going to hear is three themes from us here. It's about higher quality of service, and that's under the affordability. It's about growth, so we're covering more New Yorkers. We don't want anybody to have this problem and to not be covered. And then a lot about trust and transparency. And that's something that I've really appreciated over the last few months as we were looking to enhance the program, is the partnership dynamic, I think, has become a lot tighter. And as we peel back the details as to exactly the type of coverages that the DEP sees and that it's clear the New Yorkers wanted, having those now in our program overall feels really good. And so very much feels like a partnership, and as I mentioned, this is a partnership that we are very proud of. So I'm gonna skip a few slides here. This is a lot about our company, but I think you've seen some of these is distributed. And I'll take us through just a few slides, and then I'll invite Josh and Eric to tell you a little bit more about the program, as well as covering some of the details as it relates to how many claims we have, overall customer satisfaction, and then within the satisfaction in any areas of dissatisfaction, how we roll up our sleeves and deal with that. If I'm you, those are some of the things on my mind. Now, one quick question. Who was here when this program started, just so I can get three out of four. Okay. So this program, it's an amazing program, as you know, but we were tasked to educate New Yorkers on their responsibility, primarily as relates to their water and sewer line, and where the city's responsibility left off and where their responsibility picks up. And as part of that, the program that is in existence isn't really an overwhelming success by a lot of measures. But what I love about it is the simplicity of that it results in a better, faster, cheaper solution. And by better, when that gentleman who I visited had a problem, his water line, he had a water line problem, made one call. Didn't have to hunt through Yelp or Google and try to figure out who to call. And he called us, and good news, we do about 40% of the water and sewer jobs in New York. We have a lot of experience, or about 40%. Water and sewer line jobs. And so one call on a Sunday, somebody there same day. Substantially addressed within hours, still had to fix the street back up. I'm sure that probably took me the next day. But you get it better, because you make that one call, you get it faster, and he was paying less than $20 a month. And that is the experience of this program. And so here are some of the numbers. You must have read ahead here, you had it top of mind, but 260,000 New Yorkers covered. A couple of my favorite stats, 96% retention. This includes, by the way, that 4% is people that move. I mean, so we're pushing at 100% retention of an amazing program.
But is that fair, really? I mean, let's talk about the 96%.
Yeah.
DEP serves as the billing for your firm.
Correct.
We bill out for you. Customers they see an increase, they saw at the beginning of the program, an increase in their monthly water bill by $5, $6. Now we're driving 2 tiers, so it may be different. They're not paying attention to what you're doing once they're in the program, unless they have a problem. If they have a problem, then of course they're paying attention to what you do. But is it fair to extrapolate from a 96% retention rate to that suggests customer satisfaction?
So it is only fair if I give you the other data point, which is that our customer satisfaction is also over 90%. I think the number is like 92, 93%.
Al, can I just ask, sorry to interrupt, may I just ask, I think it's the same question you're asking from a little different angle. I think the relevant information we need is the satisfaction among customers who've had claims.
That's 92.5%, rounds up a little bit to 93, which is issued in a monthly report that goes to the DEP along with a number of other key metrics. So sometimes, some months it might be 95, and other ones it might be 91, but it's substantially, in the mid-90s as relates to that customer satisfaction.
All right.
And that's on the base of how many claims per month?
Right at about 1,000
Yeah.
a month is kind of our run rate. And that number is quite a bit higher than historically has been the run rate. It raised up, the frequency raised during the pandemic has not really come back to those historical levels. So what was previously kind of 600 to 800 a month is now 8,000 to 1,000.
Got it. Thank you.
I honestly didn't know what to expect. I really appreciate the engagement. This is
this is the one report.
This is great. I appreciate it. But the customers love the experience, and Eric will, take this in any way he does. But please, if you haven't, visit one of our job sites. A 96% satisfaction. I know what you're going to see, so you're welcome. I go, but the customers very much love it, and you can imagine why, because you're paying relatively little and you avoid an extraordinarily high expense, and that feels good. I do want to cover that even though we have these high stats, a few years ago, the company learned a hard lesson, and we put a lot of the controls in place as a result of that. The controls you see here fall into 2 big buckets, but one, things you do up front. So that's the contracts, code of conduct, employee training, anti-corruption, anti-bribery, and separation of responsibilities. So that's like things you just do up front. And then there's the day-to-day processes. That's where We have a master plumber, so folks actually on site at sampling different jobs, and periodic rotation of people on our field team so that, you know, jobs change and relationships change over time. And then I think one of the biggest things is a cross-functional team that includes master plumber, includes people from the field, includes people from Colleen's compliance team, and is led by Eric's team that reviews every single field denied claim for people in New York. And so that's so we can make sure that, you know, there's nothing we're not seeing where New Yorkers missing out on a benefit that they pay for.
Can I ask a question, because this raised some questions for me and I forgot the answer, so apologies. The plumber, so the team that comes out to repair, who's an AWR employee, who's a subcontractor, or who's just like a 1099er? So how does it work?
So we have so the claim comes into our call center, is assessed there to make sure it's eligible. It's dispatched then to one of our third-party contractors.
Got it.
We have two field management resources here that are on the ground that are responsible for the quality assurance of the execution of those claims.
So these, when you say two, is it literally two people that oversee 1,000 claims a month
It
on
is,
the ground?
Yeah, and there's a team that supports them. Aaron talked a little bit about this, you know, kind of cross-functional administrative team that reviews claim, does a number of sort of administrative items. The team here on the ground really focuses on, you know, where there are claims that are, you know, these are the big ones that require a big dig or something like that, that require sort of interaction with the DEP team and a number of others here. So they're facilitators and quality assurance on those big claims.
Got it. So when you're talking about anti-bribery, anti-corruption, and lessons learned, I won't make you put your lessons learned on the record. But so is it that you're training your people, or your subcontractors are now doing background checks on your subcontractors and they're required to participate in these activities?
Yeah, so the background checks, but also they have a supplier code of conduct that's now directly incorporated into their contract.
Correct.
And now emphasizes the ethical commitments with an emphasis on anti-corruption and anti-bribery. And that didn't exist previously.
Got it. I'd love to see, and you know, if you can just provide the stats to DP, I'd love to see the stats on MDEs in your plumbing pool.
In that list of, I see that, like with the master plumber, there's no DEP role in these claims, like on site to ensure standards. That's done through the master plumber, is that correct? To make sure that the work is done according to sort of city code and DEP regs.
Depends on the job. Certain jobs require inspection by the DEP. Let's say if we're replacing a tap, you know, the DEP has to come out and obviously inspect. But there are many repairs that are done that are self-assessed in terms of the requirements of the permit.
Got it. And this question is probably, I'm not sure this is for DEP for you guys, but how can this overlap with the lead pipe replacement programs? You guys are digging up a lot of pipe and maybe making assessments on, you know, should we replace this pipe or not based on standards that may or may not include lead pipe removals? How do we align that so that we're taking advantage of the time we open up the ground and deal with these situations?
So first, to your point, anytime today that we see evidence that the line has lead in any way, we replace the full line. So we do a full line replacement. So in the course of a year, take those 10,000 claims, there's between 1,000 and 2,000 lead lines that are being replaced as a natural course of this at no cost to the city or homeowner. As far as a broader lead liner program, we've begun discussion in terms of how we might take this, you know, customer education piece and this contractor network that we have and sort of be able to fit into the broader program that New York City would have on a lead line replacement. We'd love to have that discussion. We're just at the beginning of that process.
Great. It's great to hear that they're replaced as a matter of course as soon as you see any evidence. Yeah, and presumably DEP is happy with the performance on that and verifies that when those are removed, that it sort of comes off your list for future replacement programs?
Yeah, well, just as a matter of course, anytime a service line is disrupted, it has to be replaced with something without lead. Right, so that's whether AWR is doing the work or it's done as part of a private renovation or what
Yeah.
have you. And then yes, as we said, we've had some preliminary conversations as we think about what a broader program might be. You know, as you probably know, Dan, the question of who pays for a comprehensive lead service line replacement is a difficult one.
Yeah.
Because as I have pointed out to you all, we
The state has money.
stiffed
Doesn't
by
come
the
to
state.
you, right.
They put a cap that gave us only half of what we applied for, even though our projects on the merits scored at the top of their list.
Yeah.
So they once again intentionally hobbled New York City. We are in the process of contracting out the money we have, which will do, I actually forget off the top of my head how many homes. It's a couple thousand, it's not that many in the full scope of things. But as you know, it's probably over $1 billion citywide to do a comprehensive replacement. And, you know, given that the lead service lines are private property, and while some of them are certainly in low-income neighborhoods, there are also very high-income neighborhoods that have lead service lines. So it's frankly not clear to me that we should socialize the cost for a universal replacement across all of the homeowners who do not have lead service lines. But that's going to be a policy decision that we have to think.
And maybe back to their contract, is there any risk that there is, you know, somebody makes a call, they don't know if they have lead or not, and a claim gets denied, and that opportunity to replace it, what could have been a lead pipe, is missed. And I don't know if that's even if that's a possibility, if that's a risk, if there is I don't know what that scenario is, and I'm just trying to think out loud about not missing an opportunity like that.
I would say that water line claims are pretty straightforward in terms of, you know, if there's water coming out of the ground or on the street, it, you know, generally reflects, you know, there's no question what needs to be done.
Yeah.
And so I would say, you know, theoretically, can that happen? Yes. In practical terms, I think the overwhelming majority of those claims get picked up in a claims process.
But also, let me just be clear, and please let me know if I'm getting any of this wrong. I mean, when you say the opportunity is lost, I mean, fundamentally, the opportunity is if you've done the big excavation and you don't replace the line. If you haven't done the excavation, it's not really a lost opportunity because, you know, and I
You
do
wouldn't-
reiterate,
yeah.
as much as over the long term, we want to get lead out of the system, as you know, DEP does a fantastic job of managing the pH of the water so that even pipes that are lead do not pose an immediate danger, right? Which is not true. And one of the issues that we see when you look at lead as an issue across the country, the actual mineral composition of the water makes a very big difference to whether lead leaches into the water or not. We are very lucky as well as we earn it because we do a good job of managing that. And so the risk of a lead service line in Flint or in Newark or in some other city is not the same as it is here. It doesn't mean we don't want to get it out over the long term, but it is not at all clear to me that it is the kind of urgent need that we need to do for public health reasons.
A question, I think, for Ms. Garrity. Obviously, internal controls, huge accounting question. The auditors don't come in and audit financial controls or internal controls. But if they have a project that requires you to take a look at one of those, they do. You, as legal counsel, you're comfortable that the internal controls now that you have in place are reasonably calculated to prevent, not simply to uncover, but to prevent the kinds of issues that we are all around the table aware of?
Yes, I am. They're significantly improved, much stronger than we had previously.
Okay.
As Karen said, a very tough lesson, and we took it very, very seriously.
Tough lesson.
How would they have prevented the corruption situation that we're aware of?
Well, I think a number of things. The two in particular, I think would have been the most powerful here. One is the rotation of the contractors in the field. One of the lessons we learned was that people got too close, and that allowed for bad action. And the second is that cross-functional team that we heard about reviewing all of the claims. And we did not have that type of rigor previously, so the denied claims in this instance today all are reviewed by people who do not sit in New York City with the subcontractors.
And with respect to the historical issues around claims denial and the potential for that resulting in liability for which one might bring claims against the city or the system, whether those claims are valid, whether the city or the system are responsible, we'll put that all to the side for a moment. Do you guys indemnify us for all those costs?
So we have an indemnification provision in the contract, but I think what happens as a practical matter is we take over the claims that are brought. Is that what you're asking?
So if the city had liability, had to pay lawyers' fees, all that kind of stuff, you guys cover the cost of that?
That particular scenario has not arisen so far, but that's how the contract is.
Okay, but just to be clear, so if somebody brings a claim as a result of the corruption situation, and they add the city as a DEP, whatever they might name, as a defendant, and the city incurs expenses in connection with that, you guys pay for that?
Yeah, I mean, I suspect they would bring the claim against us first.
No, but if they didn't, if they added, because people often will just name a lot of defendants, why not?
Sure.
I just want to make sure that the system doesn't have ongoing exposure as a result of
Yeah, no,
this
we would
conflict.
indemnify you for that.
Thank you.
This is a silly question, and I should know the answer, but I'm afraid I don't. Since DEP serves as the billing agent for your firm, how does a customer, what's the process by which a customer calls up to say that he or she has problems? And who do they call DEP?
No, as a part of their enrollment, they're sent a welcome kit, and that welcome kit provides the terms and conditions of the program, and then more importantly, the process that they would use
To actually implement
contact
this.
us.
Okay.
And so it gives the sort of claim piece on there. And there are calls that come in to the call center. There's a very straightforward process to transfer those calls to us.
That seems like a very likely scenario.
Yeah, it does.
I can't imagine where my welcome packet is.
Where my kid is 5 years later.
Yeah.
It's surprising that we get this question a lot. It's surprising. There's not that many calls that come in related to claims. It might be follow-up call.
Look, as a matter of public service though, I don't think it's a bad thing, the idea that if somebody has a question and they can call our call center, and our call center has a very easy answer because they can look up whether you are an AWR customer, and if so, pass on the information. That's a problem solved for a resident pretty quickly.
Yeah. The whole, it just strikes me that the whole system is really interesting that, like this, the need for a company like this is created out of the fact that the line has been drawn on who owns the line, and homeowners insurance companies, which you naturally think of as a place for this, just have carved this coverage out. There's almost like a weird market failure that this is filling.
It's a no man's land.
Yeah, that's right. That is unfortunate.
Very smart, and they found the product.
It's an interesting
Yeah,
point.
well, that's fixing a market failure.
It's an interesting point. I think I've already said 100 times in these meetings and to members that I have a contract with AWR in another jurisdiction. AWR is the billing authority. My bills come from AWR, whatever. But what I have found is, and I've called, I haven't had a problem, but I have called them to see what the process is. I didn't get a welcome kit in that jurisdiction, and I'm fine because I've got the phone number and I know where the office is.
With that comment, you make it 4 welcome kits later this week.
No, I mean, it's just this entire process. We're not going to vote today. We were actually headed to do that at the next meeting. And it's a public meeting, so you've got to be out there and prepared, well, or you guys have to be out there and prepared. But this, I've learned a lot from you all today about the processes that you have in place. And good processes, terrific things that you're doing for New York City customers, water customers. And there's some things I didn't know. Thanks.
And if I could just, one other thing, Dan, I'll point out, I think what you and I were just talking about is one of the reasons actually that and in fact your example, Mr. Chair, is one of the reasons that I think the fact that DEP is the billing agent is actually a good thing for our customers.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, the satisfaction, at least for the 25% of our customers who choose to take us up on this, the difference between getting a phone or calling DEP's call center and saying, I don't know how to get this fixed, and they say, well, good luck, we hope you have insurance, is very different from saying, oh, here, I see that you are paying for this, let me, give you the phone number.
And now the city calls the provider, right, and that just is like, there's a scale to this relationship that benefits the New York City.
And our knowledge, I mean, honestly, I don't know if it's within our power, but I would love to create a system in which you could mandate this, that, much like Obamacare, you don't have to pick our provider, but you have to have coverage.
Yeah.
Right, or you have to demonstrate the ability to pay. And
I don't know why this wouldn't be a mortgage requirement, right? Like, it's really shocking.
That's another market failure there.
Yeah.
But in any case, I think that the connectivity of this to our network, because everybody knows to call us, is actually a benefit.
Is Encore's regulated as a domestic insurance company in New York State?
No, we are regulated as the service contract provider,
Service contract. So
but it's
there
the Department of Financial Services.
And do they look at the company for capital adequacy?
Yeah, so the statute has a number of requirements, financial security is one of them.
One other question I had, which may be for the DEP folks, and I don't even necessarily address it here, more sort of about the procedure here and why we've concluded that a competitive process is not practical.
Well, and as you may recollect, John, when we first did this, it did include, it was a 5-year contract with 2 5-year extensions. So this is the second of those 5 years extensions. We had gone back and forth about, putting it into bid. We just, at this juncture, we're so embedded, I guess, for lack of a better word, with AWR, and we felt that this was a good process to go through and get what we needed as additional coverage that has been revealed over the past few years as what we've gotten based on the complaints from the customers, from what we've seen out in the field as well as the price point as well. And I know you had raised some questions about that, which I'm sure AWR can speak to. So, but that again is not a foregone conclusion, still has to be reviewed by the board here. And then we would need to, once if this is put in place, either as proposed or as is, for the extension of 5 years, which is a contractual arrangement with AWR, they don't have to sign up for that. 5 years from now, we would consider going out for competitive bid. We would need to go out there as competitive bid at that time.
And I may have missed it, so why is competitive bidding not practical here?
Well, we figured it would be in our best interest, since there is this mass of, customers that we have already in the system with, 260,000. Doing that transition at this time, we just weren't ready for it. With everything we just went through with the billing system and just having to, queue that up, it just would have been really disruptive for us to be able to.
Would we be able to use it as a market check if nothing else, even if we were to stay with AWR, even if the prices weren't, even if it wasn't necessarily the lowest bidder, just to get a sense that it's competitive? Because one concern I have here, quite frankly, put it on the record, is without a market check, we have no way of assessing the appropriateness of the level of the pricing. When the last time AWR came and asked us for a price increase, AWR did not want to give us any financial information, essentially, and we nonetheless ended up granting the price increase. From my perspective, I hear that it's an extension, but with a price increase, especially in the wake of a corruption scandal, the no-bid contract, they're operating de novo. So my question is, how do we get comfortable around the numbers?
Just stop for it. Transparency is, as I mentioned, transparency and trust are a deal. When we start off the process, we share with the DEP our financials. The DEP is also aware of the cost of every single job, and we've shared our cost of every single job. DEP has a huge team that knows how these jobs are done, and they know whether or not, if we say the cost is X, they know whether or not that is an honest cost. And there's not that much other complexity. We run all the marketing. We run a good call center where, like I said, we're putting in more capital to make the variable cost even less going forward. But we started this off by just sharing all of the data that we could and responded to every request that DEP had for more information, and we're happy to continue to do that. The DEP's reputation, our reputation are really big deals here, and so having that trust and that transparency, we're 100% fine with it. And so any questions you guys have?
If you guys could pass along.
Oh, yeah,
Is
I
there
was gonna say-
information about their margins on that, in that?
I'll defer to Omar.
The AWR on-course was forthcoming. They shared with us a multi-year P&L with most of the line item detail on it, so things like gross margin.
So we'll pull that together,
Yeah,
John.
if we can see that, that'd be very
couple
helpful.
And for all of us.
Oh, yeah, no, we'll get it to all the members as well,
And
so.
if we're gonna do that, it would be just interesting to see kind of like top customer complaints, so we can see how those are addressed in the new contract terms.
And by the way, the only reason I think the margins are relevant is because we don't have a competitive process. So if we had a competitive process, we could leave it to the
Sure.
adversarial process to sort that out. It's not our business, really, frankly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we'll get that incorporated in so that we can also have it for the public hearing as well.
It's gonna come up there.
Yeah.
Just like I think, and it won't be because the board members bring it, it'll come up shortly from the public.
So let's talk about some of the new coverages.
Okay. This is in the first tier.
Both.
Okay, fine, thank you.
We'll talk
Fine.
about tier 1, tier 2, and just the 3 slides on the details.
Excuse me. Thanks, Aaron. So just want to walk through some of the enhanced coverages that we worked with DEP very closely on. And as we mentioned earlier, the goal here was both to provide coverage for claims that were previously ineligible, and also keep the tier 1, the core program costs as low as we could. So we added significant coverages, particularly in the areas of bellies, taps, and curb bells. Bellies, for those unfamiliar, that's when effectively the sewer line has a dip in the middle, and previously that was ineligible as effectively a construction issue that was not supported properly, so it wasn't actually something that evolved over time. And now through this enhanced coverage, that will be part of the program. So if we encounter a belly, we will do that repair free of charge to the customer. Taps and curb valves, that was a response to code changes and code enforcement changes as far as different types of taps needed or different types of water service lines, having to increase the size of the taps and also install curb valves into homes that when we're replacing the water line, now we have to also add a curb valve if there wasn't one to begin with. So those are some of the core coverage enhancements. We also added an annual fund for tree restoration. Sometimes when we do a dig, we have to actually take down a tree. So we put together a $250,000 fund to actually fund the park district to plant more trees across the city. So that's an annual fund that'll replace dozens of basically plant dozens of trees across the city. And then we're also increasing our presence in New York. We're planning on hiring a kind of a more senior general manager in the city to interface with the DEP to also manage those field managers. I think that'll help resolve just any customer complaints as well as further oversight of the quality assurance of our jobs in the city. We added a commitment of 25% of our new contractors will be minority women-owned businesses. And on top of, sorry.
It's 25% of new contractors. If you had to take a guess, where are you now?
We're at about 25% today. We have 2 of, I think, 8 active contractors.
Okay.
So.
And that's 25% by number of contracts, not by value.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And then the further enhancement is we added a second tier, as we discussed a bit. The second tier is extra coverage for people that want that extra coverage on bellies. So right now, the cap on bellies is $10,000 for tier 1. And tier 2, that's an enhanced coverage of $25,000. Also, enhanced coverage for landscaping. So if you have higher end landscaping, you can opt for a few dollars more, and if you encounter an issue, we'll replace the landscaping up to $10,000. Currently, we just cut grass and seed for tier 1. And then there's a separate coverage for stormwater laterals. A small percentage of New York customers have a separate line for stormwater laterals. If you have that in your house, you pay a few dollars more, and we will cover that as well. So those are the. Sorry, I missed one. Important one is the sewer trap. The sewer trap coverage, and this was actually. This is a very common problem actually, is that a contractor comes out, they jet the line for the sewer, but actually they realize that the blockage is in the trap, which is technically inside the home. There's an access point to be able to jet the line outside the home, but the trap is the kind of U-shaped part that comes from your house to the sewer line itself. This enhanced coverage, if you encounter that problem, will actually clear that trap line as well. And we expect that that's actually something that on-site contractors could actually offer that coverage for a few dollars more. They'll clear that line if they encounter it, and then they'll be covered in the future if they ever have another problem. So that'll be something that we'll actually be able to enhance or add that coverage on-site when encountered, as much as anybody choosing it up front. And then the other thing is we wanted to reduce escalations. There's the vast majority of escalations are due to some type of ineligible coverage that's clearly not covered. Something that's in-home plumbing related, or other things where customers just misunderstand the program. But there are some complaints or issues where there's an ineligible claim that is kind of in a gray area where the customer reads the terms and conditions, seems like it should be covered, but for some technicality it's not covered. So we wanted to create a dispute resolution process with the DEP so we could transparently discuss those problems on a regular basis, and also create a fund where there's certain coverages that may actually be ineligible, or certain claims that may actually be ineligible, yet kind of in the spirit of the program probably should be covered. And the DEP can elect to split the cost with us, and we will cover the claim. So that's a $400,000 total fund, with us and the DEP each contributing $400,000 per year. So those are the core changes that we made to the program. And then to the next slide. And this is the details. So the tier 1 program, tier 2 program, you can see the annual coverage cap still unlimited for the core program. Regardless of how large the issue is, we've had claims upwards of $50,000 that we've handled for customers with no deductible. And then the other change is the 5/8 and 3/4 Wonderland upgrades, and with curbside valves included, and then the difference in caps between tier 1 and tier 2, as well as the enhanced landscape restoration and stormwater levels. So those are the core program enhancements. And then as we talked about transparency, I think through this process, the last several months discussing these terms, we're going to be setting up a lot of processes to actually continue on a monthly, quarterly basis, being much more transparent with all of our metrics, and actually setting up escalation processes, and then also having an annual review of both the financials of the program as well as any type of claims issues that we've had, and just transparently discuss those things with Omar and the rest of the team.
Okay, I'll summarize here and lead us into any remaining Q&A here. So, as you've heard, I think from our perspective, a 10-year program here that I think has been extremely successful. I think matches the sort of the original intent here as the program was launched some 10 years ago. And looking forward now to this second 5-year renewal period, taking us up to 2028. And I'm excited just really with the changes that Josh just detailed around the strengthening of the core product with some coverages that I think had provided us opportunity to ask customer questions and escalations. And so strengthening that core product and then offering this tier 2 product, I think, begins to form sort of a broad spectrum of offers that we can have in market to kind of give what people are looking for all a chance to be a part of this program. So with that, then, it's really about how do we take the outreach and education of this program and start to expand it to as many New York City homeowners as we can over the next 5 years. I think that scale is good for, obviously, for both organizations. And then Josh just talked about finally the transparency that's required, and certainly that's sort of our cornerstone as we move into this next 5-year term here to maintain the confidence of both the board and the DP as we work together here.
I'm all questioned out.
Like, I was counting on more, but we talk about this all day long. I would love to, I'll take a risk and answer any questions behind the questions. I heard the questions. I heard the questions on financials. I heard the question on experience. And the reason why those are the 2 questions is because, as we said from the start, the most affordable program that covers the most. So we want to make sure that the financials are squeezed as much as possible and fair, so we can offer the most affordable program, and we want the most coverage as possible with no customer complaints. That's what we want. And that's what I want also as well. This is a brand defining partnership for my business where I'm inventing a new brand. So, and I already told you this is the one that honestly, for me personally, but it's also our company, it is our honor to be part of this with New York. So we make all of that data available to the DEP. We have set up the flexibility in this partnership to have this extra $4,000, $400,000 in case we want to cover anything, and we're open to any feedback and changes as we go. I'll say that beyond just like coverage, it's also that peace of mind. It's the same day experience. That gentleman whose house I visited, it's not just that he was covered. It's that we fixed it on a Sunday within 3 hours, and he had to do 1 call. Whether he called the DEP and they transferred over to us, or he called us directly, I'm not sure. But like that was a different tier of experience. The financials again are easy to audit. The customer experience is extraordinarily easy to audit, and we're happy to invest in any way to make sure that we are beating the standard of reputation that the DEP and you all set, because that is what I want for our company as well. So if you have any follow-up questions, we're in to answer them. If you ever hear the slightest complaints, we're here to answer them. And Chairman, just to give you the exact numbers, 90+% is 93.5% extraordinarily satisfied. There's some people that are in the middle. When you look at any complaints we have, 50% of them are, I didn't understand my bill. 10% of them, I didn't like the tone of the person, my rep, whoever was helping on the phone. Of the other portion, most of them are covered by the changes we just made. They had an issue with the bellies are now in. They had an issue because they thought it was just exterior, but it was actually the interior and it was the trap. That's now in. So that's why we made those changes. Now you're down to, you started at 93%. I just told you where the most of them go. You're down to literally a few dozen. Then Eric's got to review personally and try to figure out what the problem is so we don't ever have to encounter those again and build it in so that things are addressed. And that is really the rigor. And by I'm talking a few dozen, I am talking a few dozen over the course of a full year that fall into that bucket where we then have to figure something out. With $400,000, we can at least make the customer happy while we figure those things out. So anyway, I will say thank you for your engagement and questions. It was energizing to hear. It was we did prepare ahead of time. There wasn't one thing that we prepared that you didn't ask about and go all the way deep. So thank you on that. And also thank you, Omar and Joe, for your partnership and just pushing on what clearly is, all of the right levers that everybody, and everybody's made it on that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. If I may add, Chair and members, that we'll take, because there were questions you raised today, there were questions that when we had a conversation, I didn't get a chance to talk to you earlier, so I apologize for that. We'll take all those, that'll be part of what we'll report out on for the next board meeting. There will be a public hearing, which Omar is planning to schedule, I think the question we want to have is we want to leave a gap between that public hearing and when we have a board meeting, so we can incorporate whatever we hear back.
Yes, if we
Okay.
can arrange the schedule that way.
Gotcha.
that'd be great.
Because it's not required that the members come to the public hearing. I know that you often like to come, Mr. Chair, or others may too. So we'll give that gap so then we can be able to give a fulsome report as to what the findings were. And then when we come back to the board with a proposal, that you could make a, an informed decision as to how you want to proceed forward from there, addressing all the issues raised.
Got it.
Okay.
Thanks, Joseph. Thank you all for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Great to have you. John, sure. The next agenda item, the last agenda item, is a presentation from the chairman of the.
John, I'm not running out of these, but I do have to put the other ones, so don't take a quick note.
We're very perfect. I'll be very quick, but if you need to, don't worry about it. I will acknowledge this news is a little stale because it's reporting on a meeting from last December, but nonetheless, it's still relevant. We had a meeting of the governance committee. Arlene is a member of that committee as well as Evelyn. And we looked at the board's self-evaluation form, had some feedback for DEP about that. We had some changes that were made to that form, including adding a not applicable column because some of the elements didn't really fit with what we do. I think there was some reordering of the questions. Omar can speak to the specifics of that more. And we also just talked about our procedures, our policies, whether everyone felt that we were demonstrating good governance, whether there was sufficient transparency. One suggestion that came out of that conversation was a request that we get materials for meetings earlier. I think we have been getting them earlier, so thank you very much. We should continue to try and press on that. We'll have another meeting that I believe Omar is working on calendaring in December, or it may bleed into early next year if the calendars don't align. But that's the plan. Omar, on the self-eval form, did I leave anything out or otherwise for that matter?
No, the form is, the form we use is a standard form the State Authorities Budget Office asks us to use, and the questions are, they're written like a state government would write, so they're little.
But we do have the authority actually to revise some of those questions.
We do, although we've played with the wording in small ways over the years, but we haven't substantially changed the form.
We should ask the governance committee and with you, of course, to spend some time, assuming that that all opportunities exist, to decide, John, whether or not the self-evaluation form is specific to us, the water board, as it could be. And that's a different question. Can we change some of the wording? Of course we can. But we can actually change the concept of the question if we believe that it gives the board the opportunity to be thoroughly evaluated.
Would you mind adding that to the agenda?
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
absolutely.
Thank you, Mr.
Chairman. We have one of our staff, one of our accounting people tabulated, and it's like the parts of the form, everybody answers all the questions, of course, but in a way, it's revealing in a way, but it's not revealing in another way, because the answers are so compressed in a small part of the form. We made revisions over the years.
It's an interesting observation.
We added an applicable column, your suggestion a year or two ago, and that it was sort of funny because people felt that parts of the form were not applicable to the board, but then when given the choice to affirmatively state it's inapplicable, they kind of, when we're forced to say it's inapplicable, it's actually it is applicable. So we added that change, and then we did some reordering, just numbered the questions to kind of facilitate the discussion. But the form, it is still kind of ultimately a state government form, and it probably could benefit from some sort of rewording to make it more specific to this board, kind of, some of the longstanding topics we've discussed. We'll take that as an agenda item.
Thank you, sir. I was at the Authorities Budget Office years ago to address that very question, the very question of the inapplicability of some of the questions on another operations form to that operation. And
did it make sense to simply give us the opportunity to eliminate the inflexibility and give us the opportunity to do just that, to make the informed decision. And they initially said no. And then apparently somebody thought about it, and they came back and said, okay. You just have to think sometimes, it actually works.
That part.
You gotta go.
Oh, that part, you gotta
It's true, it's true. All right, is there any other, I'm sorry, John, is your report finished?
My report is finished, although I'm happy to address any questions that folks have. I'll do my best about it in a meeting that was 11 months ago.
Good call. Is there any other business to come before this board? There being none, hearing none, may I ask for a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. You want to take the vote, or can I just say we're out of here?
You can say.
We're out of here.
All right.
Thank you all for
Thank you
being
very
here today. It was good to meet you all.